Rebekah Griffith is back. I'm a live stream. People know her as the EDDPT. Rebekah, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing great. Good weekend. Anything fun, exciting? You're in a fun, bright place. You're in a sunny place.
Yeah, Colorado was beautiful this weekend. I have no complaints about that. We spent the weekend in track meet.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. We're going to go back in the Wayback Machine before we dive into today's topic. 3 years ago today, we were talking about books. Do you remember? This was 3 years ago? I have no idea how that happened.
I don't either.
So I'm showing a screenshot of a Facebook, one of those memories where it's like, hey, 3 years ago. And we were talking about Vivek Murthy's book Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection. He was the former 19th Surgeon General of the U.S. He was talking about how loneliness is an epidemic. So we talked about that 3 years ago, apparently.
That's a lot.
And that was 2022 when we were doing book club. Maybe this is sort of better than book club. Not that I don't like 20 people talking about a book, but it's hard to talk when there's 8 or 10 or 12 people in a room, especially like me. I want to talk.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like talking about a lot of different books instead of just talking about one book, because everybody brings a different perspective. And then you mentioned a book last week, I read it this week and it was great.
All right, so let's dive into it. So last week I we had to go kind of quick, but I went through this 6 Types of Working Genius book, and I'd heard of it before. But I listened to it, which was the first time I think I ever finished an entire audiobook. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but not a lot of books. And then you were like, hey, that's interesting. And then people normal people, I think more people, not you're abnormal, but you are abnormal in that you'll buy the book and finish the book in less than a week. That's a little abnormal.
Well, I listened to it like you did since you were listening to it, but I listen to audiobooks on 2.5 speed. So I think that's hard.
I don't know why, but that just gives me heart palpitations. I can listen to something I listen to work stuff, work lessons. I'm 1.25 and I think I'm edgy there. 1.5 is too much for me.
No, 2.5 feels just about right. If I slow it down, it feels like they're talking so slowly. I don't know. My brain just prefers that.
All right. So let's dive into 6 Types of Working Genius. We'll you asked ChatGPT how we should format this. So you tell me, how are we going to format this?
Well, I asked ChatGPT about StrengthsFinders and how we could use that based on our 6 areas of Working Genius, because we talked about that last week and I felt like we were pretty solid with the 6 Types of Working Genius. But I wanted to mention I had a conversation with my husband about that. So you and I were trying to guess each other's strengths. And I was like, hey, husband, here's the basic premise. What would you choose my 2 strengths are? And he chose totally different things. And I think that's because who I am for my family and who I am professionally maybe are different. And maybe some people have the same strengths throughout their life, or is it just that I'm in those roles at home? Those are just my roles. And are those my yellow roles? I don't know. But so I've been thinking about that a little bit this week. Have you thought about that? Whether you personally feel like you're different?
You mentioned it. I've thought about it. I don't even know the technical term. I have a very chameleon-y personality, but I think a lot of people do, which is listen, when I'm around my bros, I'm a different guy in that group. You throw another person in that group and everybody's sort of doing the math where they're who do I need to be more of? Who do I need to be less of? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'll stop talking in generalities and I'll just talk about me. But I'm different when I'm around my family versus, even different parts of the family. If I'm in a group of cousins, or if you throw an aunt, uncle in the mix, it changes. So I think that's kind of universal. I think we're different people at different times.
Well, also it's the space that needs to be filled, right? And so I think my strengths at home are the supportive one and the one that finishes things. Oh. And that is because nobody else in the house really has those gifts. So even if they're the things that kind of drain me of energy, they're still the things that I am the most skilled at and can deliver for my family. And it's a gift to be able to do that. But it was really interesting to think about that. Why am I in these roles? Could I be doing something differently at home that would play more to my strengths too?
I've got 2 really good friends from high school. Can hang out with them together, but definitely can hang out with them separately, right? And Brian is a middle school social studies teacher. Brian's down the middle. I don't think I would offend him. He's a play it safe guy. He's always done the right thing. When I'm with Brian, I can be sort of edgy because Brian's never going to let me go too far. Brian's been a dad even before he had kids. Like I was his first kid, probably, right? But I hang out with my buddy Paco, and Paco's a little more risk averse. Sorry, risk taker. It's not risk averse, risk taker. So with Paco, I can like go with him, but I probably am a little more like, hey man, maybe this is as far as we should go. Like this feels like, because I'm like, there's no Brian to anchor us. So I think we do. We do change based on who we're with. All right, let's relate this to StrengthsFinders. How do you want to do that?
Well, so I was thinking about that, and I think that the 6 areas of Working Genius are just sort of a way to consolidate the StrengthsFinders.
Yeah. It's a paradigm. Can we review it real quick?
Yeah.
So 6 types of Working Genius says there are 6 types of activities, right? Yeah. They're not. So that's where I think StrengthsFinders is talking about your DNA. I think 6 types of Working Genius is talking about the types of activities that need to be done in work, at home, just in things. And since there are 6, they tested so many people and they figured out that everybody is sort of a genius at 2 of them.
Yeah.
Meaning you get energy from them, could do them all day long.
All day.
They call them geniuses, right? And then that's like green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, right? So green would be geniuses. Yellow would be competencies. You can do it. It neither here nor there. It's a little like mayonnaise. And then there are frustrations. These are the things, if you had to do them for a prolonged period of time, you would hate life and be like, this job or this activity, I'm out. Whereas StrengthsFinders is like talking about drivers, or how you, I don't know, how would you sort of frame it? It's like an internal part of your DNA.
Yeah. So they talk about like how it sets you apart from other people. They call it your talent DNA.
Talent DNA. All right. So how do you want to dive into this? Because this is, I feel like, a little more complicated, which I'm never for, but I did like taking StrengthsFinders a few years ago.
Well, there's 34 of them, and I feel like that's kind of excessive.
That's
and
a lot.
I think it's sort of ranking where you are in these 34 characteristics. And I think every physical therapist probably has some combination of these. What I'm curious about is what you think would make the top strengths for a PT, because I'm going to guess that yours and mine are also different.
Well, they're definitely different just because there's too many. I don't know. I don't know if I know StrengthsFinders well enough. And again, I took it because Megan Moran, who's a PT faculty at Marymount, where I went to school, they used this as a way. They gave it to a bunch of incoming PT students. But the way she presented it at CSM, I believe, she was like, most of the time when you take StrengthsFinders, the results don't shock you. They're not shocking. They're cool to find out about yourself, but they're not like, oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Where she said there was value is because it's a problem-based learning school in small, most of the things were done in groups. It was unique to be like, oh, how do I interact with someone who's good at that or maybe bad at that? And how do we fit together? Because most of the things we're going to do in life is with a partner, with a group.
Yeah, and it's got different themes, right? Like executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And I think those themes are key for physical therapists. And then it's like little characteristics within that. But I like that it gives you like your top 5.
Right. So what would be the top 5 for a perfect PT if we were to grow a PT in a lab?
I think that's a great question. So one of them, this might be, you'll appreciate this because this is one of yours, is woo. I think woo is top 5.
Say that one more time.
I think woo should be in the top 5
of a perfect PT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to like get some buy-in from your patient. You have to have them trust you. You have to build a relationship. Like it's like your first visit with the patient's a little bit like a first date. You want to make sure that there's some chemistry there. There's a match there. There's like some buy-in. So I think woo would be one.
I agree. Woo was and they order these. Woo is my number 3, and woo falls under the StrengthsFinders pillar of influencing.
It does.
Which is themes help you take charge, speak up, and make sure others are heard.
It's my number 23.
You're not a woo person?
No, apparently not. I'm an activator. That's my influencer.
So the problem with woo that I found is me figuring out someone doesn't like me, even if they do, if I don't think they like me, I then have to chase this down. And I was not jokingly explaining this to people, which is like, I've been in some relationships where I'm like, I spent 90% of that relationship just trying to get that person to like me. And the person did like me, but I wasn't sure of it. So it's not necessarily it's a strength, but it could also be a weakness.
You got to finish the Let Them book then, Jimmy.
I know. I'm on it.
Because we're working on that one.
All right. So what else would go into a perfect physical therapist?
Probably communication.
Yeah, you're going to have to be able to take what you know and communicate it because it doesn't do anything in your head.
Analytical.
Because you've got to be able to figure out, I mean, a lot of it is evaluation and diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe individualization.
And individualization is you're intrigued by the unique qualities of each person. So you're very interested patient to patient in what is going on as an individual. I have that one. That's in my top 5. Is that in your top 5?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I'm a very good PT now, Jimmy.
That's not how this works. We all try our skills. We use our familiar skills in unfamiliar places, and that's our superpower.
And then maybe empathy.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. I mean, empathy will put you in the shoes or attempt to be able to understand what another person is feeling. I do not have empathy in my top 5.
It's not in my top 5 either. None of these are
all right. Well, let's skip through this. Hold on. Now let's go 5 to 1. What are in your top 5? And we'll give a brief breakdown of what those things are.
Strategic is number 1.
Okay. And strategic falls under which
strategic thinking.
Oh, obviously. Okay, good. Jimmy didn't pay attention.
I don't think that's a good PT characteristic. It's a thing that helps you absorb and analyze information that helps make better decisions.
Okay. What's your number 4?
Strategic was my number 1.
Oh, okay.
And it says you create alternative ways to proceed. Faced with any given scenario, you can quickly spot the relevant patterns and issues. I think that's perfect for an EDDPT. So I'm going to take that. Okay.
Love it.
Number 2 is activator. You can make things happen by turning thoughts into actions. You want to do things now rather than simply talk about them.
Good. Because talking about it's nice, but if we're not moving and not doing it and activating on it, it's not kind of not worth it.
Right. Input. You have a need to collect and archive. You may accumulate information, ideas, artifacts, or even relationships. So I'm a collector.
Okay.
Of information. I think that's why I read so much. And I do feel like this is going to sound bad, but I kind of feel like I collect people to a certain extent and build relationships in that way, and cultivate my network a little bit.
Okay. What's next?
This is not going to surprise you. Futuristic. You're inspired by the future and what could be. You energize others with your visions of the future. Okay. So that's when I'm talking about top of scope, right? Like who we could be as a profession. Like that's definitely, I feel like, a match for my top 5. And then number 5, achiever. You work hard and possess a great deal of stamina. You take immense satisfaction in being busy and productive.
All right. So when you looked at these things, first, were they accurate? Were there any surprises on there?
No. I think when you look at the full list, you're like, well, is that who I want to be? I mean, that's clearly who I am, but is that what I had hoped would be out on the list? I don't know.
Well, supposedly I asked this too. I had Pam Bartlow. She's a professor at a school in Buffalo, I think. She's a PT professor, and she is like a certified StrengthsFinders coach. Like she's able to now come in and, work with a team or an organization about what do you do with this sort of thing. And I said, can these change? Like over time. And she's like, generally, no. She said, I think she said it happened once, but it was when that person went through a monumental life change and the person had a child. It was a male and they had a baby. And he's like, now things have shifted. But it's also, it's a subjective, test. You're answering these questions and then it's sort of analyzing you.
Well, my number 34, my worst one is consistency.
Okay. Yeah. See, I didn't pay for everything. I just know my top 5 because I was like, give me the highlights and I'll move on.
Well, I'm the girl that likes horoscopes. So you give me something like this. This is like a cosmopolitan personality quiz. And I used to do those when I was a teenager in the 90s. So, I'm going to go all in on this. All
right. So now that you know your top 5, has it changed how you approach things? Has it changed how you treat yourself? Has it changed how you anything?
Well, what I like about it is it gives you like bigger things about why each of those strengths is a good thing and how to leverage them. So I think that's actually the most helpful part. Like to tell you like, this is your skill. Like, why are you trying to do things this way when you can use your talents to do this? And so I think that was really the more helpful piece of it. And it also tells you about blind spots.
Okay, look, tell me about that.
So this says, watch out for blind spots. So this is under strategic. When working with others, sometimes they may misinterpret your strong strategic challenge or talents as criticism. Be mindful of what is already working well and what others have accomplished. Because you evaluate patterns and pathways quickly, others may find it difficult to follow or understand your thought process. Be aware that you might have to backtrack to explain how you get where you are.
This is in my opinion is actually where the value of these tests come in. Because I think it's like a horoscope. It's the Cosmo, which friend's character are you? It's cute. Yes. It's nice. It's a good self-reflection. Where I think the power comes in is, how do I relate to others? Was your PT program problem-based learning?
I don't know.
Did you do a lot of small groups, like a tutorial? Okay. So probably it was at least some problem-based learning. I went to we had an individual interview and a group interview for Marymount University, where I eventually wound up going. And the minute they put us in a group interview and they gave us a scenario, and there was a proctor there who was an alum, right? Probably. The second they did that, I was like, I understand what the game is. The game is not the scenario. The game is, how do you treat the other people in the scenario, right? So once I figured that out, I was able to, for lack of a better term, game the system. But I was, that the game was figuring out the game, and we did that quickly. And I think that was good, because doing the thing that you're going to spend a lot of time doing in the interview when you're in PT school is probably a good idea. But people who don't have the ability to do those things, it's not easy. So understanding this, I'm okay. This person's a little shy, but I want to look good I'm wooing. I'm trying to win over everybody, including the proctor. I'm going to pass the ball to this person across the table for me, and then I'm going to bring back this, and I'm going to take the person who's overly trying to win the game, which was not me, and I'm going to acknowledge them, but try to get them to tamp it down without telling them to shut up. So it is, and we do this. I think we do this innately in life. We try to figure out where we are and what's needed, as we mentioned in the beginning of this, conversation.
Yeah, and there's just so many pieces in here that are helpful too if you apply it to patient care. Like one of these things in here for the activator, it says it's very likely you excel as a solo performer. You're quite eager to start new projects, jobs, and assignments. People who cause delays undoubtedly frustrate you, and they don't understand your need to make progress. So I like seeing patients one time.
Oh, so in the ED is right down your middle.
Right, because it's just by nature you motivate people. So if I can motivate those patients and then send them on to the next step, then I'm not going to get frustrated if they're not doing their plan, if they're progressing on their timeline and not my timeline. Urgency is my timeline. Let's look at you, let's get you going, and let's move on to the next thing.
That would have worked for me.
The novelty of what I do fits so well with what's here also. And my need to look at QI stuff wherever I am, I think it's part of this as well. Quality improvement, really, how could we be doing this better? Can we do this differently? And I can't be in the same place over and over again.
Yeah, maybe I should have been in the ED. I would have stuck around clinical care longer.
Yeah, and it says sometimes you might charge ahead and act without a solid plan.
Sometimes that's a good idea, though. Inaction, indecision is a decision. You have decided not to act. And I know it feels safe. I use this all the time, where I know I'm more of a ready, fire, aim kind of person, and that can get me in trouble. It can also help me win, though.
But if you were a patient, which strength would you want your PT to have be number one?
Oh, see, I don't know all of them. I guess
just as you as a patient, that's going to be individual too.
I don't know.
Because I don't really need somebody who has a ton of empathy. I need somebody who's going to drive me into the ground.
Yeah. I mean, you want the empathy because you want them to be able to take what they're seeing and say, okay, I understand what's going on here. But then, yes, I sort of like people who lay out a plan for me. I'm like, I can follow it. I was an athlete. I loved playing for coaches. I was like, if you give me a plan, tell me the 3 things I need to do. Don't give me 33 things. Give me 3 that I need to do every single shift or every single inning or every single race. And I will do those 3 things. So I like people who can break things down, I guess.
Yeah.
What would that be? Because I don't know all the other strengths on the.
Let's see. I would think maybe, I don't know, maybe the analytical person or the arranger.
What's the arranger again?
I don't know if I have that one like all spelled out on my list here.
Well, it sounds like someone who arranges things, and that's just me being analytical.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to hear my top 5 to see if there's any surprises?
I do.
Okay. My top 5 are Gallup StrengthsFinders. I'll go from 5 to 1. My number 5 falls in that relationship building pillar, which is themes that help you build strong relationships that hold a team together. So my number 5 is individualization. I'm intrigued by the unique qualities of each person, but I'm impatient with generalizations or types because I don't want to obscure what's special and distinct about each person. So this is where I got yelled at as a PT student with my clinical instructors, because they're like, why are you spending so much time talking to these people? And I'm like, aren't you just curious about them? And they're like, move it along, chief. And I'm like, this is nails on a chalkboard to me. I didn't want to move it along.
I got that in my fellowship too just now.
Did you really?
Yeah, like you're doing a great job connecting with the patients, but you gotta move it. And I'm like,
do you though?
Do I?
Do you though? That's my question. Or like, what if we didn't get to the thing? I'll give you an example of where doing that helped. My last clinical rotation, I had a good CI who was sort of like, do your thing, man. You're going to graduate in like 3 months. Like, you're as close to on your own as you're going to get. She saw someone come up on my calendar, on my schedule, and was like, oh, little background on her. Frequent flyer. She comes in every 6-8 months. I've never been able to help. Maybe you can. Different approach. Okay. Balance issues. That's super vague. I don't know what that means. That could be a billion things. So I'm like, we were attached to a gym. So I was like, let's go walk. I want to see you walk. So I wanted to walk outside, but it was like a strip mall sort of vibe. So I was like, treadmill. Let's do a treadmill. So we're watching a walk on a treadmill. But now you're standing there awkwardly. So what do you do when someone's walking on a treadmill and you're standing there? You talk to them. I'm like, this is great. Now the focus isn't talking. Now the focus is walking. And this is the thing that's distracting you. Well, 10 minutes in, I think I asked, like, what do you think is the balance issues? Because she described the balance issues and they were still vague. There were nothing there. And she's like, and then she's like, I don't really know. And then a minute later, I let there be some pause. I do shut up every once in a while. I let there be some silence. And she said, I drink about a 6-pack a day. Do you think that would have an effect on my balance? And I was smart enough to say, hang on a second. We have got a thread. Let's pull this, but don't yank it. Let's just let it go. And I said, what do you think? Do you think that might affect your balance? And she's like, I think it probably does. And I'm like, and now we're onto something. And then I found out her daughter just had a baby. So now she has a grandchild, but the daughter doesn't want her around the grandchild if she's going to be intoxicated frequently. So now we have a problem that she understands, and we have a motivation. Getting better is super vague. Holding the baby is tangible. And I was like, everything in my brain was like, whoop, whoop, whoop. This is great. I can't believe this. You wouldn't have gotten that in 3 minutes of a subjective. No. I'm sorry. You wouldn't.
No. I had a patient who was 80 something. And I said, why do you think you keep falling? She's like, it's probably the 7 shots of tequila I have while I'm watching my shows. I was like, cool. Let's watch the shows in bed and we'll get you a bedside commode. She's like, great. That sounds perfect. She's 85. She's not going to change what she's doing. It just makes her happy. But when I was on my fellowship rotation, I was in a completely different state even. And I went and I was working with this patient who'd been coming in over and over again. And he just said, I want to tell you about something that happened to me at work. And this guy's been not able to get back to work for a really long time. And he was in a really like first responder kind of profession. And he told me the most traumatic thing he's ever experienced in patient care. And I can see why he doesn't want to go back to work. Like, he's not progressing. Like, his medical condition is not progressing. And I said, do you feel like you want to go back to that? And he's like, I can still feel this person's head in my hands. Oof. And I won't share like how graphic and awful it really was, because I'm now holding part of that for him. But he gave me a hug at the end and he was like, I need to talk to somebody. I said, you do. And I think that needs to be part of your recovery process here. And he's like, I don't know why you were the one that I needed to tell this, but you are the one that I felt like could hold it for me. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you hold this person's head for you. Like, I'll hold it with you. And I think if you are like constantly moving it along so that we can get you onto the leg press.
You're missing a lot.
Right. Because is he going to progress to the point where he can truly get back to work?
Now, there are some people, there's some people it's just a hip issue, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not discounting that, but that person has a lot going on in their life, but this isn't a thread to everything. So I don't want someone out there saying like, well, Jimmy needs to talk to people for 65 minutes to figure out. No. But you gotta read the room. It's hard. How do you, you got to read the room. Maybe that's an analytical thing. Maybe that's probably another one of those things. All right. So that's my number 5. That's individualization. Number 4, this is what I thought would be my number 1 because I have a degree in it, which is communication. So communication falls under the pillar of influencing, themes that help you take charge, speak up, and make sure others are heard. Communication, you like to explain, shock, to describe, shocking, to host, shock, to speak in public, and to write. The speak in public, the write a little bit, right? This is your communication theme at work. Ideas are a dry beginning. Events are static. You feel you need to bring them to life, to energize them, to make them exciting and vivid. This was not a shock to me.
I can't believe it's number 4, though.
It's number 4. That was the biggest shock because I was like, wow. And as soon as I got to that one, I was like, then what the hell are 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, it's number 7 for me. So it's in my top 10, but I'm surprised it's 4 for you.
Number 4. Number 3 also falls in that same pillar of influencing is WOO. And I never realized that WOO is an acronym and it stands for winning others over.
What?
That's what it says here. Winning. I was like, that's what WOO means. You enjoy the challenge of meeting new people and getting them to like you. Challenge. Strangers are rarely intimidating. On the contrary, strangers can be energizing. You're drawn to them. You want to learn their names, ask them questions, and find some area of common interest so you can strike up a conversation and build rapport. Not a shock.
No.
So that's number 3.
Yeah.
Now, this is the biggest shock, though, now, is my number 2 and my number 1 both fall in strategic thinking pillar. Those are themes that help you absorb, analyze information that inform better decisions. I would not think I am a strategic analyzer type person.
What?
I don't know. To me, like analyzing sounds too spreadsheety. And I'm like, I don't do that. I grip and rip. But my number 2 and my number 1 are both in strategic thinking. 2 is ideation. And then once you say it, you're like, well, that makes sense. So ideation, you're fascinated by ideas. What's an idea? It's a concept, the best explanation of the most. An idea is a concept, the best explanation of the most events. I don't know. That's a weird sentence. That's not properly written. You are delighted when you discover beneath the complex surface an elegantly simple concept to explain why things are the way they are. An idea is a connection. This is why I love dry erase boards. This is why when someone says, this is the first time this has ever happened, I'm like, ooh, why didn't it happen before? How's it happening now? What's changed? And this is why I get sidetracked on things a lot. So I have to know this and be like, you might have to dial it back if I need to execute on something. So my number 2 is ideation.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. Number 1 is also in strategic thinking. And I was shocked just from the word, the name of this thing. I was like, that's me? And then I tell this to some people who know me and they're like, yeah, that's you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So sometimes it's not so obvious to ourselves. My number 1 is futuristic. And futuristic is described as, in quotes, wouldn't it be great if ... You're the kind of person who loves to peer over the horizon. The future fascinates you. That's absolutely true. If it were projected, the future fascinates you as if it were projected on the wall. You see in detail what the future might hold. And this detailed picture keeps pulling you forward into tomorrow. I love adding 2 things that don't make sense. Radio DJ, physical therapist, doesn't make any sense. This was not on purpose. This was by accident. But yes, I love those things. This is why I like the podcast has now shifted into more discussions on books or something, which is let's bring a new idea in and let's play with it. Let's bat it around like a kitten with a ball of yarn, or let's do live streams with Tony and Dave. Let's take this thing I kind of understand like as much as anybody can, business, communications, marketing, technology. How do these things all play well in an ever evolving sandbox? So this is my number 1.
And what do you do for work right now?
I work for a health tech innovation, artificial intelligence organization but here's the thing. You would think that a futuristic person, I would need to be the person like coding, but like there's not a chance in hell I'm ever going to be able to learn how to build any of these AI things.
But that goes back to your areas of genius, right? Like you're not the builder, you're the thinker.
Correct. So I bet you there are some coders who are thinking, because without a great idea, right? Or this is where partners come in hand, like Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Like Jobs was definitely a wonder. And I don't know what that would be a fun exercise. Take famous people and make ChatGPT tell us what their 6 types of working genius are to explain it.
Yeah.
Definitely be a wonder. But Steve Jobs was not a galvanizer. Well, I don't know. Maybe he was, because he was all about giving the TED Talky type things. I don't know. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to like reverse engineer what those things were and why they were successful. There I go, using some of my StrengthsFinders again. Ooh, I wonder why, or how did he do that?
But in the book, the 6 Areas of Genius book, one of the things that I really appreciated was when one of the people who was the finisher, like the implementer and the finisher, right, they were like, you have no idea how much work it actually takes to take your idea and then make it happen. And we need you to be a little bit more cognizant of what it takes to take your idea and apply real life to it and make it into a thing. And so I think that's sometimes the thinkers are the ones that get all the credit, but really the implementers ought to get lifted up a little bit.
Totally. And then I would see that phrase and idea and raise you another one. Steve Jobs, in his book, if you read his biography, they used to say he had a reality distortion field. Did you read his biography?
No, but
it was a little long. It could have been 300 pages shorter and still been a great story. But he had this thing where he'd say, like, I forget the specifics, but an iPhone is like a metal case, right? It's just a metal box with stuff inside. And they were like, if you know anything about electronics, it's like signals don't go through metal, man. Like, so you're trying to, but he was like, make it happen. And they're like, we can't. And he's like, make it happen. So he walked around and he was like, I'm just going to have a distorted view of reality where, like, if I keep pushing you, you will make it happen. So without that, would you have the progress? But here's the thing, someone still has to do it. So you need those several different types of people, or the thing doesn't get done. But yes, you're right. The wonder invention person typically gets the credit because they're on stage.
I want to be that for physical therapy. Like, I want to be the person that says, we should be doing it at this level. We should be practicing at this level. And then I get people that say, well, we can't do that. We don't do it that way. It's not possible. Can I like go to conferences now and be like, make it happen?
Yes, except there was a formal relationship with Steve and his employees.
Yeah.
They were all on a mission to do whatever the particular mission of Apple. If you want to look it up, I'm sure it exists somewhere. This is where I have a good problem with conferences like the Graham sessions. And just for people who are out there who might not have heard of it, it's a super small, invitee only-ish sort of group of people. It's like 100 people. I'm fudging some of the statistics, but it's small and it gets better. And everybody gets together and we're supposed to solve the big problems. I feel like that room has a lot of wow people. And then the problem is they're not tied to each other. So you get a bunch of people who are talking at 30,000 feet, but there's no number one, there may be less enablement and tenacity people in the room. The GSD people, look it up if you don't know what GSD means. There's not a whole lot of GSD people in there, and then no one's responsible for doing any of the things they're talked about. That also drives people like me crazy. I was like, are we going to go now? And they're like, well, just go do it yourself. I'm like, no, man. So you had Steve had people on his team and their only job and the reason they were there was do this. And they talked about the friction. Michael Jordan, they said people thought he was just the biggest a-hole. And he was like Steve Jobs-ish. He was like, we were going to be champions and we're going to beat everybody and we're going to outwork people. And they were like, can't we just phone this workout in? And he's like, no, we're not. This is why he has, I don't know, a lot of championship rings, five rings or something.
And cute shoes. His
mom had the discernment view of looking. Did you see Air? Did you see the movie Air?
No, but I need to.
Very good movie. Tells the story behind the story of Michael Jordan getting his shoe deal with Nike. And Nike was not Nike. Nike was like fifth best. At best, they were the fifth. They were known as a running shoe. But they wanted basketball because it was going to be more money. It was more visible. So this agent, the guy who was supposed to run around, the Matt Damon character, had, I don't know, $1 million a year to spend on like 4 athletes. And essentially, it's like buying 4 lottery tickets. So he would look at the draft and then be like, we're going to give $250,000 to each. And then and I might be fudging the numbers, obviously. But then he was like, I want to bet it all. I'm going to give my entire year budget to this kid, Michael Jordan. And they were like, that's too much of a risk. And he's like, we're either going to sink or swim. Dividing our lottery ticket by 4, it ain't going to do it. Yeah. And then so Mrs. Jordan, his mom, was smart enough to say, I want this much money because Michael's worth it. And it was the first time she ever got a cut of anything with his name on it in the future. And he was like, this isn't possible. You can't do this. Like, this will not be allowed. So he went to the, I think Ben Affleck character, who was like the Phil Knight guy who ran Nike, and was like, we got Jordan, but she's asking for too much. And to Phil Knight's credit, he's like, well, what is she asking for? He wants a cut of everything in the future. And he goes, well, if we're going to sink or swim and it's based on this, then we have to make this decision. So yeah. Michael Jordan still makes checks in 2025, even though he hasn't played in 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about personality types. Now we're talking about movies.
Well, that's okay. I'm a mom of 3, so I fall asleep every time I put on a movie. But yeah, I do read a lot. But my take home from that is, you got to risk it to get the biscuit, kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing, she was going to get nothing. So they were either going to win and win big, or they were just going to all have nothing. And I think that's a fair risk to take.
I think the story with Michael Jordan's mom does go back to what we're talking about here. Is she read the room? She's like, yeah. I know what my son is. I am aware, not just he's my boy. I am aware of where he is in the social space. I understand, And then she was like, this is worth it. She's doing the math. She's doing the scales. She was doing the seesaw. She's like, he is heavy on one side. He is valuable. You have to match that to make it balanced. I mean, there was a story about, I can't remember this kid's name. Remember The Lion King? The movie?
Yeah.
The Disney movie? Yeah. The kid got offered $1 million in like 1992 or something to sing the Simba part. Simba was the kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be the voice of Simba and sing whatever the main song was in Disney's The Lion King. And his mom, here's the theme. Moms are smart. His mom was like, okay, we'll take $50,000 and royalties. And they were like, you're really going to want to take the $1 million? You're saying to $1 million? And now the math is mathed to a lot more money.
Yeah, like Jonathan Taylor Thomas is probably still living on that.
What did Jonathan, was he the Home Improvement kid?
Yeah, he was Simba.
Oh, yeah. But this other kid sang. Jonathan Taylor Thomas didn't sing.
Kid was, you just crushed all my
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, I guess, didn't sing.
Well, that's disappointing and sad.
Yeah.
Well, right. So I think kind of pull it together.
Yes.
Taking all of these pieces of information about yourself and figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go is really helpful. But I also feel like if you're going to go into a job interview, having this information is helpful, because how many people get asked those questions? Well, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?
Oh, I never thought of that. That's a good idea.
So I feel like you could just be like, hey, I'm really strategic thinker. I'm an activator who helps get things done. I'm really good at collecting input from others. I have futuristic thinking, and I'm a high achiever. So I'm going to take all of those things, put them together, and help your company be successful.
It gives someone a third dimension to your resume, which is sort of a list of accomplishments, which doesn't tell anybody anything. But now you're able to use it in context, because it's always tell me a time when you were really stressed and you really whatever. And now you're able to say, well, I'm going to tell you a story about where invention, like this is what you would say in your head. I'm going to tell a story about how invention led to 4xing revenue, or I'm going to tell you about how Woo, helped me get 3,000 leads in 6 months, and why that's, because now you're talking in terms that the other person finds valuable. We like, if it's a sales job, if it's a clinical job, and putting it in an objective context, how I use these strengths. Those are cute. Like, as the kids would say, cool story, bro. Tell it again. Like, why does it matter to me? What, so what, now what? Give them the now what. That's a good point.
But I'm doing more and more consulting. And when I look at these top 5 strengths, strategic, activator, input, futuristic, and achiever, like to me, that sounds like the kind of consultant you'd want to hire. So being able to take those pieces of information and put them together, I think is really helpful. And then having your blind spots so that when they do ask you, what are your weaknesses? We can say, well, these are my strengths, but what I know to be aware of because of that are these things. And so you're not like, oh, my weakness is chocolate cake.
Right. My weakness is I just care too much, Rebekah.
I'm a perfectionist.
I can't move on because I need it to be chef's kiss and perfect. All right. You want to do parting shots?
Well, I'm going to ask you a parting shot question. How about that?
Ooh, okay. I've never done this before.
Okay. If your strength was a cocktail, because it's PT Pintcast, what would it be?
Oh, if my strength was
your number one strength.
Do you know your answer to this?
No, that's why you got to go first.
Well, I'm going to ask it back to you. I was trying to buy myself some time.
I know.
Let me look at my wonder, communication, visual, woo. It would have to be something very peacocky, right? It has to be something loud and crazy. Ooh, man, this is a good question. A Pousse Cafe.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I've only made one. It was because I found it in a bartending book when I was bartending at my uncle's. And it is a drink that you have to do in layers. Someone's going to fact check me. There's like 8 different liquors in it. And it's layered from the most dense to the least dense viscous. So you actually pour the liquors in the glass over the back of a spoon. So it that they don't mix. So when you're done, it just looks like a bunch of striatic lines. So I would say a Pousse Cafe.
Okay. That was not what I expected.
Because it's all about look at me. That's what it's about. Look at what I can do. Look at and let's talk about this. Ooh, let's stir some conversation around that. So it's a drink no one would ever order or drink. Who knows if it tastes good, but it looks kind of crazy because you pour it. They're different colors, so the green doesn't mix with the red, and it's layered.
Like what you get on your 21st birthday because you don't know better and it looks cool.
Yeah, no one orders this drink. It's just a visual peacocky thing. It's not functional. It's just a conversation starter. So so same question to Rebekah Griffith.
I think maybe an old fashioned.
Ooh, there you go. Why?
I think it's classy and I think it opens doors because a lot of people drink it. So it's a thing you can like have questions about. There's still some choices that go into it. So when you're like building the ingredients, like you have to think about what's going to mix well. And it just doesn't have like a bad hangover to it.
Oh, have you ever had a lot of them? Because I've had a hangover from old fashions.
Well, no. I haven't, because one also feels like enough.
That should be true. That should be true.
So I would say that.
That should be true. You can find her online. She is the EDDPT, Rebekah Griffith. What are any big events you're going to coming up that you're going to be in person?
I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend at the Vestibular Symposium at Aurora Advocate Health.
That sounds very fancy. And have a few old fashions. You can talk more about vestibular issues and balance.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for doing this. What do we want to do next? Is there an assignment you want to give me? I told you I'm good with, I need someone to give me some, like a coach, give me something I need to finish the Let Them book, don't I?
I think so. I'm actually having my teenager listen to the Let Them podcast. We're having conversations about that.
All right. I will get on that. And the next time we speak, we will be talking about Mel Robbins and the Let Them theory. And
how to place a burnout in physical therapy.
We'll tackle big problems with my futuristic and ideation strengths.
Strategically.
Thank you for talking, Rebekah. Thanks for making my day.